What's up, folks? Spencer here. Today we're going to be talking about how to capture user feedback or bug reports, all that kind of stuff, and to kind of avoid doing it in a poor way or a way that's going to annoy users. So to get a little more context, I'd suggest reading the intro of the associated tutorial, the written version of this, just to kind of walk through some of the pain points and some good ways to actually capture user feedback. And then we'll just dive into the code here. So what we've got here is a revolutionary new app on color picking. It's called Clargu. Came up with that myself. But we can go through our onboarding. You can talk about, this big data machine learning to get money from investors. And once we're inside of the app, all we can do, or everything we can do rather, is generate a new random color for our user. So that's the extent of this new revolutionary app. And before I put it into the App Store, I want to make sure I can capture feedback from a user when they've gone through some new colors. So the way we're going to be capturing feedback, as I talked about in the actual written version of this, is once they take a certain number of actions, in this case, once they take 6 or 7 or 5 actions of asking for a new color, we're going to go ahead and ask for user feedback from them. And we want to do this because we want the user to experience the app, and if they're constantly going through new colors, maybe there's something wrong with our color algorithm, so we can go ahead and open up a GitHub issue for the open source maintainer to actually fix our company problem. But anyways, let's go into the code. So what we want to do here, we've got this screen that just generates a random color. We've got this little entry point, which if the user's onboarded, it'll just drop them directly into the sign-in screen. We've got our onboarding thing. If you want to learn more about setting up an auth flow, I've got a members-only lesson on React Native School that you could go through and look at that. But we'll just focus on the feedback here. So looking at our navigator, we've got a switch navigator, which will go between entry, onboarding, and main. And what we want to do is put our feedback screen above all of those so that anywhere within our app, be it entry, onboard 1, onboard 2, or random color, we can then pop that feedback form up over that screen, cover it so that they can focus on giving feedback. And it's just also accessible from every single screen in our app, one place, easy for us to manage and all that. So what I'll do first is create a basic feedback form or feedback screen. I'm just going to paste in some text. Obviously, you'd probably want some sort of input form for the user there. And then we can go ahead and create our new modals set of screens. So we can set up a create stack navigator to create a stack navigator. And in here, we're going to want our primary navigator, which the screen is just going to be the navigator above. Then we're also going to set up our feedback. Now, this is going to be another create stack navigator, so we can have a tab bar because we're going to be disabling this global one because we don't want a tab bar on this screen. It'll mess with our riveting new design here. So to do that, all I'm going to say is header mode none on this modal stack navigator. And while we're here, we'll also just go ahead and say mode is going to be modal so that the screen's presented from bottom to top versus right to left. And then inside of our feedback screen, we'll go ahead and create our feedback form. The screen here is then going to be feedback form. And we'll go ahead, set up our navigation options and give that a header title of feedback. So let's go ahead, just check that it works. What I'll do, let's just go ahead and change this sign out quickly. And instead of going to onboarding, we'll go to feedback. Oh, and the reason it's not working yet is because we need to actually use this modals to create our app container rather than navigator. So if I change this to modals, we can see everything looks the same. If I press new color, that changes it. If I press sign out, it'll bring up this feedback form for us. So that's all good and set up. Let's go ahead and disable that or set it back to what it was. And then to actually go ahead and capture this, what we could do is say, we'll add a new state variable called click count. And then in the new color, we could say click count. It's going to be state.click count plus 1. So that'll go ahead and increment it for us. But if we actually want to prompt the feedback form instead of giving them a new background color, what we could say is if this.state.clickCount is greater than 5, we're going to do something else. We'll go ahead and do this. Okay, so one thing we're going to do is actually go ahead and reset the click count to 0, because this is a point where we're going to ask for feedback, and we'll basically restart that whole process again. Second thing we want to do is actually do that this.props.navigation.navigate to feedback. So now if we press new color, press it a handful of times, it'll go ahead and prompt us to give feedback. And again, this is a nice time to ask for feedback because they've used our app. They're not in the middle of any super important flow like, checking out or booking or anything. And it's not a big hassle. They've got a sense of what the application does, and we want to know. So an example I give in the written tutorial is, say your app gives out jokes, or you can generate a new joke, and they go through 15 of them and they just keep pressing it, keep pressing it, keep pressing it. Maybe then you can prompt them for feedback for, why aren't they laughing at those jokes, and learn more about your audience that's using the application. And something else to add in here is I'm using component state to capture these click counts right now, but you could very easily put that into Redux or Context or some other global store where after 20 actions, any action, you'll ask for feedback versus just 5 specific actions. So that's another way you could use this exact same pattern on a larger scale of your entire application. Now, quick caveat, and this is from personal experience of being a user of an application, is as we see right now, when we prompt, there's no clear way to get out of leaving feedback. Maybe I'm just going through colors because I just, like potentially inducing a seizure. So I just want to go back to doing that, and I don't want to leave you any feedback. So again, it's critical to give the user a way out. It's always beneficial on you to leave that positive user experience of giving them a way out. So what I'll do here is just say header right. We'll go ahead and use a button component. We'll say close. On press is going to be navigation.pop. Navigation is going to come from navigation options. Oh, and we need to make sure we close this component. So we'll go through the same process again, and here we've got a way to close it. But it seems the way I've got this set up isn't working. Refactor this a little bit. Go through it again. Close. Okay, cool. So, make it easy for the user to get out. Now, obviously, this is only one part of setting up a feedback system or a bug reporting system. You then have to set up the back end to capture those, and then you need to set up some sort of front end or email system to actually deliver those to yourself or your developers, product owners, whatever it may be, so that the interested parties actually get that feedback to them. And that's a whole other thing to set up. Personally, I like to use tools like Instabug to handle those things. And Instabug actually is a sponsor of this tutorial and an entire class on how to debug apps in development and production for React Native. So if you want to focus your time, energy, efforts, and money on building out your core product versus building out these support systems like capturing user feedback, capturing bug reports, capturing errors and crashes, all things that Instabug does, I definitely suggest checking it out. But before then, just check out the class that they sponsored. It's completely free, and I'll just walk you through different tools, tips, and tricks of setting up a debugging process in development for React Native, and then all the way up through production and how to capture all those different reports and errors, all that stuff. So I hope you found value for this. Capture feedback when it's appropriate, not when the app first opens or when they're in the middle of checking out. Do it in a way that you would like to do it. It's easy to very much fall into, I'm building this app, this app is my product. To take a step back and look at it from the user's perspective and see if you're really building it for the user to have the best possible experience, the most valuable experience. So I hope you found this lesson valuable, and I'll see you in the next one.